Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Gustav Jung. You are sitting in a quiet room. Nothing is happening. And then a thought appears, uninvited. Perhaps it's an old memory, a cringeworthy moment from years ago. Perhaps it's a sudden, bizarre worry about something you have no influence over. Or maybe it's a dark, intrusive image that makes you flinch and ask, where on earth did that come from? We all have these moments. We all experience thoughts that feel alien, that seem to bubble up from some unknown depth. Yet, our most fundamental assumption about ourselves is that we are the thinkers of our thoughts. We are the pilot in the command center of the mind. But what if that feeling, that sense of authorship, is just a story we tell ourselves? What if you are not the one writing the script, but merely the screen on which the words appear? This question can feel deeply unsettling. It challenges the very foundation of your identity, your sense of agency, and your free will. But this exploration is not meant to leave you feeling powerless. It is meant to guide you toward a different kind of power, a more profound form of freedom. In the next 19 minutes, we are going on a journey into the architecture of your own mind. We will dismantle the illusion of the mental CEO, venture into the vast, automated machinery of the subconscious, and meet the tireless narrator who convinces you that you are everything you think. And by the end, you may come to realize that the greatest liberation is not found in controlling your thoughts, but in understanding that they were never truly yours to begin with. We begin with a myth, the myth of the mental chief executive officer. It's the default way most of us experience our own consciousness. We imagine a central command center, a little me sitting in a chair, pulling levers, pushing buttons, and directing the flow of mental traffic. When you decide to make a cup of coffee, you believe the CEO issued a direct order. When you solve a problem, you believe the CEO did the critical thinking. This feeling of being the author of our actions and thoughts is so intuitive, it feels absurd to question it. But psychology has a name for our tendency to overestimate our own influence, the illusion of control. It's a cognitive bias that makes us believe we can steer outcomes that are, in reality, far beyond our command. A gambler blowing on the dice before a throw, a sports fan wearing a lucky shirt. These are simple examples, but the illusion runs much deeper. It applies to the very core of our internal world. Imagine you are behind the wheel of a car, hands firmly at 10 and 2. You turn the wheel left, and the car turns left. You turn it right, and it goes right. Your experience tells you, unequivocally, that you are the one driving. Now, what if you learned the car was actually self-driving, following a predetermined route, and your steering wheel wasn't connected to the tires at all? Instead, it was simply reporting the car's movements, making you feel like you were in control. The car turns left, and a split second later, the wheel gives you the feedback of a left turn. You would still have the powerful, undeniable sensation of driving, but it would be a complete illusion. This is not so far from what some neuroscientists and philosophers argue is happening inside our skulls. The most famous exploration of this was a study conducted by scientist Benjamin Libet in the 1980s. The experiment was simple. Participants were asked to flick their wrist whenever they felt the urge, and to note the exact moment they made the conscious decision to do so. What Libet found was startling. By measuring brain waves, he saw that a spike in brain activity, a readiness potential, occurred a fraction of a second before the person felt they had made the decision. In other words, the brain had already begun the process of action. Before the conscious mind, the CEO, was even aware of it, the conscious decision didn't seem to be the cause. It seemed to be an afterthought, a news report on an event that had already been set in motion. This study has been debated for decades, but its central implication is a crack in the foundation of our assumed control. Your brain often decides before you do. So if the CEO in our head is, at best, a middle manager with an inflated title, who or what is actually running the organization? To find the answer, we have to go deeper. We have to look below the surface. Think of your mind as a massive iceberg. The small portion you see above the water that is your conscious awareness. It's the part of you that is listening to these words right now. The part that worries about tomorrow's meeting. The part that feels like the you in your head. But beneath the waves, unseen, is the colossal mass of the iceberg. This is your subconscious mind. It is 95% of the operation, and it is almost entirely automatic. This unseen architect has been built and programmed over millions of years of evolution and shaped by every experience you have ever had. Your genetics, your childhood, your culture, the language you speak, the traumas you've endured, the joys you felt, all of it is encoded in this deep machinery. It regulates your heartbeat. It translates the light hitting your retina into coherent images, and it generates the vast majority of the thoughts and feelings that bubble up into your conscious awareness. When you suddenly feel a pang of anxiety, you didn't decide to create it. It was a signal sent up from the deep, an ancient pattern triggered by a perceived threat. When you get a creative idea that seems to come from nowhere, it wasn't commanded by the CEO. It was the result of unconscious processing, of your brain connecting dots in the background while you were busy with other things. Nowhere is this more evident than with the phenomenon of intrusive thoughts. These are the thoughts that provide the most powerful and often disturbing proof that we are not the sole authors of our mental content. The sudden urge to do something destructive, a flash of a horrific image, a cruel jab at your own self-worth. These thoughts are not reflections of your character or your true desires. They are, in a sense, mental spam, glitches in the machine, random outputs from the complex generator of the subconscious. The machine is always running, always producing thoughts. Not all of them will be relevant, helpful, or even sane. They just are. And they appear in your awareness without your permission. This leads us to the most crucial part of our journey. If thoughts are automatically generated by a system largely outside of our conscious command, then where does our suffering come from? If a dark thought is just a glitch, why does it have the power to ruin our day, our week, our life? The problem is not the thoughts themselves. The problem is what we do with them the moment they arrive. Because while we may not have a CEO, we do have something else, a tireless narrator, the ego, the storyteller. Imagine your consciousness as a clear, flowing river. The thoughts are the leaves, twigs, and sediment that float by. Some are beautiful, some are ugly, some are neutral. They just flow. The narrator is a figure standing on the riverbank, and as each thought floats by, the narrator frantically snatches it from the water, holds it up, and shouts, "This is mine. This one belongs to me." A thought of failure floats by. The narrator grabs it and says, I am a failure. This thought proves it. An anxious thought about the future appears. The narrator grabs it and says, I am an anxious person. My life is defined by worry. A bizarre, intrusive thought floats past. The narrator grabs it, horrified, and says, what kind of monster am I to think such a thing? This act of identification is the source of our psychological suffering. We take the random, impersonal output of our brain's machinery and we weave it into the fabric of our identity. We believe that because a thought appeared in our awareness, it must be our thought, that it must mean something profound about who we are. This is the true trap of the illusion of control. We don't control the emergence of thoughts, but we desperately try to claim ownership of them, especially the painful ones, because we believe that's what it means to have a self. So, are we doomed? Are we merely puppets of a subconscious machine, tormented by a narrator who misunderstands his job? No. An ancient school of thought, refined for the modern world, offers a way out. Not a path to controlling your thoughts, but a path to freedom from them. This is the liberation offered by Stoicism and the practice of mindfulness. The great insight is this: true agency is not found in trying to stop the river of thoughts. That is impossible and will only lead to exhaustion. True agency is found in changing your relationship to the river. It's about teaching the narrator a new job. Instead of being the frantic owner of every thought, you can become the calm observer, the curator. You can learn to stand on the riverbank and simply watch the thoughts float by, without judgment and without grabbing onto them. A dark thought appears. You notice it. Ah, there is a dark thought, and you let it float on. An anxious thought appears. You notice it. There is a feeling of anxiety, and you let it pass. You are not the thought. You are the awareness that notices the thought. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus called this the dichotomy of control. He argued that the key to a tranquil life was to distinguish between what is in our power and what is not. In this context, the thoughts that bubble up into your consciousness are not in your power. They are like the weather. You cannot command the clouds to part, but your judgment of the thoughts, your assent to them, that is entirely within your power. You can't stop the rain from falling, but you can choose whether or not to stand in it and declare that you are ruined. The metaphor for your identity shifts. You are not the storm. You are the sky in which the storm clouds pass. You are not the individual thoughts. You are the vast, silent, open space of awareness in which the thoughts appear and dissolve. This shift in perspective creates a buffer, a sacred pause between the appearance of a thought and your reaction to it. And in that pause lies your freedom. And so we arrive at the heart of it, the illusion of control. The idea that you are the thinker of your thoughts is not a curse to be lamented. It is a key. It is a puzzle that, once solved, unlocks a more profound and resilient form of self. Our guilt, our shame, and our judgment. We hold ourselves responsible for the random spam generated by our evolutionary hardware, and in doing so, we torture ourselves. The ultimate realization is this: your identity is not the chaotic chatter of your mind. Your identity is not the fleeting, contradictory, and often nonsensical thoughts that drift through your awareness. Your true self, your true power, lies in a deeper place. It is the silent witness, the calm center in the hurricane of the mind. Your agency is not in the authorship of thoughts, but in the power of your awareness. It is the ability to choose which thoughts you will listen to, which stories you will believe, and which ideas you will build your life upon. This is the seat of real control. Not the frantic micromanagement of your inner world, but the quiet, dignified mastery of your response to it. This is where your self truly begins. The next time a thought appears in your mind, whether it is mundane or beautiful or monstrous, instead of asking, "Why did I think that?" try asking a different question. To whom is this thought appearing? If this exploration of the mind resonated with you, you might find a similar depth in our video, The Solitude Paradox. Alone but never lonely,